How's it going, everybody? Gooman here with part 7 of the new Monster Roundup series for Monster Hunter Wilds. This is a series where I look at all the monsters who are newly introduced in this title to break down the fight and occasionally go off on wild, insane tangents. Today we are finally covering Zoh Shia, the big boss of this game's story. It is absolutely not required to watch the previous videos in this series, but if you end up enjoying my analysis and commentary, please consider checking them out. And as a disclaimer, one of the reasons this video took so long is that I kept getting sidetracked learning about ancient mythological texts that I theorize inspired the story of Zoh Shia and wanted to put in the video. I had a lot of fun doing the research, but if that's not something you're interested in, please feel free to use the timestamps to skip around. I'll have all the key breakpoints labeled for you. Liking, commenting, subscribing, all of that helps out the channel if you feel that I'm worthy of your attention, but most importantly, I really appreciate you choosing to spend your time with me and my little projects. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's get to the hunt. I'm letting the intro fully play out because I think it's really interesting. When you first fight Zoh Shia as part of the story, in the cutscene when you break him out of his cocoon, it's already in its white form. But here the reason we have the high rank hunts at all is that Zoh Shia was somehow able to regenerate or procreate, and we're meant to fight it before it grows too strong. Since it wasn't able to gestate as long, Zoh Shia comes out in its more evil-looking black dragon form, and it's the wyvern milk energy that appears from the ground that turns him into this angelic figure. In this cutscene, it looks like the energy from the earth is tying him down in some way, and because of the way the story frames Zoh Shia as this guardian angel of Wyveria, I do question the real intention of the ancient Wyverians and why they created Zoh Shia in the first place. My guess is that the Wyverians were trying to create a weapon of mass destruction, something like the Equal Dragon weapon, and went extinct because they lost control of it. And it was only due to the interference of nature through its Wilk energy that Zoh Shia was given its more angelic form to at least protect the land, if not its people. I'm not calling this a real theory though, since I don't have any information to base it on. Zoh Shia can't do a whole lot while in its angel form aside from creating the crystals that acts as a barrier to prevent you from attacking it. It's a very defense-focused style of combat that's not trying to prioritize defeating the hunter, right? Like it's continuously building walls to prevent you from damaging it directly. But of course, as we chip away at its defense, its true form emerges as the destructive black dragon it was intended to be. The first thing you will do is release its head, unlocking its ability to breathe fire, which can of course interact with the crystals to do big damage if you aren't prepared for it. But at least for the first chunk of the fight, his white shell will continue to regenerate, which is technically supposed to make it more difficult to take down due to the extra layer of protection, but it doesn't necessarily make the fight harder in terms of gameplay. And I do find this interesting. If Zoh Shia's goal in this fight is to kill the hunter, then the best move here is probably to just completely shed its white shell and immediately bombard you with elemental attacks. But instead, the energy from the ground keeps trying to reset Zoh Shia to this more limited form, as if something is preventing the two of you from going all out in this fight. When it comes to gameplay, I am a fan of the Wilk crystals and what they add to combat. This arena gives you plenty of dragon and thunder ammo for your slinger that you can use to detonate the crystals, which can lead to huge damage on the boss if everything lines up for you just right. The slinger is something every player has access to regardless of weapon choice, and I like that you have the opportunity to use this tool to interact with a fight in a reactive way. This is also the fight where it would be very useful to know that you can use your slinger with your weapon drawn. On a controller, engage focus mode with left trigger and press down on your left thumbstick to shoot. The game does not tell you this, by the way. If you're not interested in the slinger at all, you still have the option to run away from the crystals or smack them with your weapon. I don't think this early part of the fight is all that challenging. Again, it's all about dealing with the walls it puts up to prevent you from attacking it directly. The main difference between this high rank fight and what I remember from the story fight is that Zoh Shia has a lot more follow-up moves to his attacks now, often using 2 or 3 hit strings to keep you moving, taking away your uptime. The challenge of this fight kicks in as you keep doing damage and unlock its demon form, at least on individual body parts. The first part is the head, which unlocks massive powerful fireball attacks whose tracking almost feels a little unfair. The second part is its wing appendages, which let Zoh Shia create cascading fire puddles that can cover a wide range in front of it. At this point, Zoh Shia can interchangeably create crystals and produce fire, but never as part of the same attack. I do find it interesting that using Wilk crystals as a defensive and offensive tool seems part of its innate impulses. I don't have an explanation for that, could just be video game logic to make the fight more fun. Throughout this part of the fight, the Wilk energy does keep trying to revert Zoh Shia back to its angel form, like if you card it here and run back, Zoh Shia will be back in its shell again. But as you keep doing damage, you will hit a point where Zoh Shia is able to completely shed its shell from its body and tail, finally unlocking, in my opinion, its most interesting power. In its full demon form, not only can Zoh Shia produce fire like before, it can also summon lightning. I've talked a bit about lightning/thunder powers in Monster Hunter before in my Ray Dao video, but thunder is an interesting element in this universe because there isn't really a monster that can produce the raw, natural thunder element the way monsters can with fire, ice, and so on. Thunder is usually a representation of either static electricity, like with the Tobikadachi, Astalos, Fulgur Anjanath, or it's channeled via the monster's body as a conduit, like with Ray Dao and Ogre's Fulgur bugs, who can redirect naturally occurring lightning strikes. There are also the odd exceptions like Kezu, who is able to internally generate a localized electric current and discharge it, kind of physiologically similar to an electric eel in real life, but its effects are obviously exaggerated to work in a video game. I know this is pedantic, but what I'm trying to say here is that even though it makes very little functional difference in the gameplay, there is a metaphorical difference between the thunder damage some monsters can do and lightning that strikes the earth from the sky. But I find it interesting and intentional that the unleashed Zoh Shia can use thunder attacks similarly to how the Elder Dragons Kirin and Elatreon can, which is to say they conjure or summon natural lightning like it's a magic spell. And the part that makes me really intrigued is that Zoh Shia's lightning is tinted red, as if it's mixed or corrupted with dragon element, which is innately produced. I have no explanations for this, like at all. I have no idea what's happening here, and I hope we get some answers about what I can only assume is the quote-unquote true nature of Zoh Shia and why it exists. Which leads me to my fun little theory I teased weeks ago in a post and my Arkveld video. I don't think we've seen the final form of Zoh Shia yet. Like, whatever weapon the ancient Wyverians created, I don't think we have any idea of what that actually is. I'm not a religious person, but I do find mythology fascinating in general and an interesting well to draw narrative inspirations from. This is just my attempt at amateur theological research, and I do vehemently apologize in advance if I misunderstand or misrepresent any of the things I'll talk about. I mean no disrespect, I'm just digging into the potential literary inspirations that went into this video game about hunting monsters. Alright. If you look at the weapons you can make from Zoh Shia parts, you see names like Veya, Raphael, Katir, Mikal. I can make the case that almost all of the weapons are inspired by names of angels described in the Jewish Kabbalah. In my own simplified terms, the Kabbalah presents 72 separated aspects of the Abrahamic God, each with its own name and specific purpose that followers perceive as angels. Understanding and meditating on these 72 names, collectively called the Shem HaMefrash, is meant to bring you closer to God. A few examples of these include the lance named after Sital, the angel who influences honesty, the light boga named after Achaya, the angel that influences discovery, and the hunting horn has a few options it could be referencing, but my bet is on Ariel, the angel that inspires revelation. Again, I do apologize if any of this is off the mark. I did what research I could, but at the end of the day, I'm not much of a theologian. The way I understand it, the Kabbalah is not part of mainstream Judaism or its regular observance, and it's more about the mythology and magic rituals that are part of ancient Hebrew history and creation. The thing that I find interesting in relation to Monster Hunter, which I promise is still the point of this video, is that the weapons take on the aesthetics of the angelic white form of Zoh Shia, and since this appearance is maintained by Wilk energy, we can reasonably suppose that this energy represents what the hunters may understand as the divine. In other words, my theory is that Mother Nature is the closest we have to a literal god in the Monster Hunter universe, and enacts its will through special elder dragons as suggested in the lore of Monster Hunter World. Based on the series' history of commentary on our relationship with nature, I've been personally equating the Wyvern milk energy to the will of the land, and will be incorporating that term for the rest of the video. The reason why I think there could be a sequel to Zoh Shia, or should be, let's be real, this fight rules, is that the angels described in the Kabbalah do have like an evil twin counterpart in another ancient text called the Ars Goetia, which is mainly about demonology and rituals, and describes 72 demons that rebelled against the same Abrahamic god alongside Lucifer, whose literary origins have close ties to the fallen angel Samiel in the Kabbalah. Taking all of this into account, it makes perfect sense for a very normal person like me for there to be a fallen angel version of Zoh Shia who was allowed to fully grow into the black dragon form without the interference of the will of the land. This form of Zoh Shia would represent the extent of evil that humans are capable of, and defeating it is supposed to teach us a lesson about not screwing up nature, like don't spill oil in the ocean. As an offshoot of this theory, I also think Arkveld will get an evolved form where, having achieved free will and breaking away from its programming as a construct, it chooses to use its powers to fight against Zoh Shia to help protect the land, which kind of falls in line with the themes from Nata's story in the base game. If we were to see Nergigante in World as a force to preserve balance in nature, I could see Arkveld as a potential force for moral good in a battle of good and evil. I'm basing this on a fantastical version of the Arthurian legend where the wizard Merlin was born of a demon and was meant to become the Antichrist, but was ultimately able to go against his created purpose and used his magic powers to orchestrate the ascension of King Arthur and help him vanquish evil. And this story ties into Arkveld based on its weapon names, overall story progression, and his cute little helmet. I also would love to see Arkveld break free of its chains, both metaphorically and literally. Okay, that probably wasn't the tangent you expected in a video about a game series called Monster Hunter, and I'm very likely reading way too much into things. Of course I am. I've played a Monster Hunter before. But doing literary analysis like that is super fun for me. Like, I do this in real time if a game is interesting enough, and it breathes so much life and enjoyment into the media I already enjoy. I wish there were more games like that. If you hated that whole thing, I'm sorry. I'll try not to do it too often, but I also can't change who I am. So thank you to all of you who stuck around for it. To close out the rest of the fight, it's worth pointing out that partway through as you're about to break the shell on its wings, Zoh Shia winds up this big cinematic attack that creates massive crystal walls. You're supposed to break a couple of these before its fire breath hits them first, which bathes the whole arena in a sea of fire. To me, this signifies that the demon impulses within Zoh Shia are starting to win over the will of the land as its attacks become increasingly aggressive and destructive. Zoh Shia starts combining the crystal formation attacks with its elemental abilities to try and actively cart you instead of just fighting defensively. A short while after that, Zoh Shia is able to completely overpower the will of the land and permanently stay in its demon form. However, if you notice, there are still remnants of the Wilk shell around its body even if there's no gameplay significance to it. It's almost like the will of the land is trying its best to hold it back, but it just can't keep up anymore. This is also the stage of the fight where Zoh Shia starts blasting you with lightning. The intensity of these strikes keep increasing until you get to the final stretch, where fire and lightning is raining down on the entire arena like a storm. Okay, this is my last mythology tangent. The ability to conjure and control lightning, or storms in general, is something often closely tied to powerful deities from mythologies around the world. We're talking Zeus, Thor, Lagong, Indra, Quetzalcoatl, Susanoo. Also remember that Monster Hunter is developed in Japan, the most popular religion there being Shintoism, a belief that spirits called kami inhabit all natural elements and that we must preserve harmony between people and nature. If we were to fail, we face divine retribution, or tenbatsu, which translates to heavenly punishment. Tenbatsu is often, but not always, associated with lightning and storms. So I do think it's interesting that Zoh Shia, the fallen angel, has the power to punish you in a way using what looks like dragon-corrupted lightning. And then you boop it on the nose and you win. Yay! I love this fight so much. I would put Zoh Shia right next to Arkveld as one of my favorite monsters in Wilds, if not the whole series. I think the difficulty of this fight is directly tied to your ability to manage the crystals, because you can perfectly dodge every attack but still take big hits if a rogue fireball hits a crystal just outside your periphery. It's super important to either constantly be on the move to an open spot or be proactive about shooting the crystals with your slinger and maybe do some damage yourself. I like this a lot. It gives me so much more to do throughout the fight that isn't just hit, dodge, hit, counter, focus strike, and so on. The fight feels big, asks more of you than usual, and the things you do throughout the encounter feels important because breaking its shell dynamically changes the fight. Even after the 20 or 30 hunts that I have on it, I still feel like I have to earn every win. And that's pretty much it. The only other thing I want to use Zoh Shia as a talking point on is on the discourse about the difficulty of the new generation of Monster Hunter games. I know I keep teasing that topic as well, but I do want to give that discussion space in its own video. Hopefully the next one, unless I get distracted by another weird tangent. Please do leave a comment and correct me if you feel like my amateur theological analysis was misrepresentative in any way. Being wrong is definitely not my intention. This will likely be the last new Monster Roundup video for a while, unless we have some unforeseen surprises in the upcoming title updates. I do hope my theories and predictions on Arkveld and Zoh Shia pans out, because I would love to see a follow-up to both monsters based on the context they represent in the story. But if not, hey, at least I got to learn something new and make some content out of it. I ended up enjoying the heck out of making this video, and I sincerely hope you had as much of a good time watching it. Let me know what you think of my theories or this scripted format. Any feedback you have will make my content better. But anyway, take care of yourselves, be good to each other, brush your teeth before you go to sleep, and I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully without a random 3-week break in between. Bye!